All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our directors meeting. Let me share my screen real quick. All right. So today is Monday, March 14th. We are so glad that you are here for our directors meeting. We'll start with our opening business from our executive director, Jennifer Lambert, and then I will just go over a few quick announcements for you. So Jennifer, we'll turn the time over to you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to March. I don't have too many announcements. We made it through the legislative session. We'll be in the future doing, excuse me, have a catch in my throat. So in the future, we'll be doing a little session kind of update about that. But just in terms of what I saw in the session, it's what, sorry, maybe Marie, can you go first?
Yes, I can happily go first. And I'm recovering from a cough too. So we also have William Evans here. If not all of us get coughing too bad, we'll let him take it over. We have just a few quick announcements. The March newsletter came out. So if you haven't had a chance to read that yet, let us know. We'll be happy to send you a copy. I believe we pulled all of the different upcoming trainings. There's a lot happening with USBE this month. There's teaching and learning meetings, math coordination, school leadership, Title I directors, all the different things are happening. So make sure that those are on your radar.
Marie,
big training. Yes, go
Marie,
ahead.
can I just add something on that last slide?
Please.
Just everybody's information. For every one of these, the point of contact is either the USBE or the UAPCS. So that's who you would reach out to. There were also two other training offerings for today and tomorrow, but because because of the nature of when this meeting was taking place, I didn't include those because we should have already RSVP'd if you're planning on attending those.
Perfect. Thank you, William. We did want to make you aware, and I'll be sending out the follow-up information after this meeting. March 17th, that's Thursday this week, we have a lunch and learn coming up with board member Olson, and it's going to be about drafting bylaws. So we'll be inviting your board members as well as you, our school leadership. We're happy to have you attend any of that. Jennifer, that's all the announcements we have. Are you feeling better and ready to share a little bit more?
I hope so. I am without fail, just when I need to start talking is when I have the coughing fit. So I apologize about that. So again, about the legislative session, it was a lot about what didn't pass. There was a lot of education bills that were kind of big news, but they did not pass. Not all of those we have all of the information about yet, namely full day kindergarten and OEK. I know I've gotten some questions about that, about what will that mean, what funding will be available for schools. The short answer is we will let you know as soon as we have that information. And but look, you'll be looking probably something similar to what has been in the past in terms of that you would need to kind of apply for the OEK funds. And we will do our best to get as much money out to all the schools who want that, want those funds. Other than that, Smriti DeCall did send out the information about the foreign exchange students. We were also waiting for the session to end before we got that information. So please look back in your emails for that. She sent out the information for those that want to be able to apply for those spots for foreign exchange students. And I believe that's all that I have for this month.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It does look like in chat that Joylyn also reminded us that UAPCS has their policy training every Wednesday at noon over Zoom. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you tune into that. We were going to have a school fees campaign update, but I'm not seeing Greg on our call. William, do you have any updates on that campaign?
I do not at this point.
Okay, well, we will go ahead and move forward.
Marie,
All
I
right.
could
Yep. Go
I
ahead,
could
Jennifer.
maybe just give a little bit what we're looking at. We've gotten a few complaints from those that look at school fees, that in some of you, when you're asking for volunteer hours, you do it in such a way that it would make a reasonable person think that it was required, not volunteer. So what we want to do is we want to help you with that wording to make sure that you are within the law and what you can ask for and can't ask for. What we have been doing thus far is we've been working with our AG as well as the AG who serves with the school fees folks at USBE, and just kind of clarifying some of the things. For example, in one of our prior meetings, it was said that if there is a number attached to the volunteer hours that you're asking for, that automatically would not be in compliance with the law. Now, we've gone back and forth with AGs, and we have clarified that a number in of itself does not make it seem that it's not volunteer, and that it would not be out of compliance with the law. So what we're doing is we're trying to get what that would look like, so we can give you clear guidance. And when we have that drafted up, which should be very shortly, Greg is going to send that out, and so that we can help you just wordsmith those things that you're putting out there, so that it is in compliance with the law, and we don't get complaints about you and don't have to follow up on any of those complaints. Are there any questions about that? Wonderful, because I'm not Greg, and so I probably would not have as clear of answers for that, but that is my understanding in a nutshell, Marie, what we're talking about here.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. We appreciate that. As you saw from the agenda, we have a rather short meeting today. So our next two things that we have coming up, we have our leadership training, and we have Liz Bunker, who is one of our portfolio managers. And she's going to be sharing about staff engagement and retention ideas, recognizing that that is a hard and tough concept that I think everybody's facing right now, after a couple of years of pandemic teaching and just all of the social pressures that are happening. So Liz will lead us through that. And then we are going to stay on the call after that for just networking and collaborating together. Any problems or things that you'd like to discuss. If you don't want to network or collaborate on anything, you're welcome to hop off at that point. We will keep recording, and then we'll send out the link to that afterwards. So that's what we have coming up, our leadership training, and then just some networking time. And that will be the remainder of our meeting. So Liz, I'm going to stop sharing and we will turn the time over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marie. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Hi, everyone. So when we picked topics to do trainings on, I was really excited about this topic because I taught for 10 years and I really care about teachers, kind of at the core of like what things I care about. So I was really excited about this topic. I reached out to several of our amazing directors and said, I love the way you talk about your staff. I love the way that you go about leadership and teaching and, just like really taking good care of your teachers. And the feedback that I got back from directors right now was that it is a little bit of a struggle. A lot of folks are losing teachers for next year. They've lost a lot of teachers during the pandemic, lost their employment. And so it's just a tough time. So we pivoted this topic a little bit with the caveat, motivating and engaging teachers in the spring of 2022. So yeah, I left the classroom after teaching for 10 years in February of 2021. I chose to leave for many reasons, and a lot of my teacher friends are also currently weighing their options. We know that directors across the US are struggling with retaining teachers and staff, let alone this discussion about motivating and engaging, right? So many people are asking, how do we motivate teachers who are completely exhausted? How does an LEA retain teachers in quite unprecedented times? Is there anything that can be done? So there was a recent Ed Week article titled "To Keep Teachers from Quitting, Address These Key Elements." Stress, burnout, all these things, the additional burdens of the pandemic that have been put upon teachers and school leaders and just education in general. These were things that were stressful before COVID, and now COVID's really exacerbated a lot of issues. What was really interesting was that while pay matters, it wasn't the main point of dissatisfaction based off of the outcome of this article. So none of this is probably new information to any of you. I know that you're talking to your teachers, you're conducting those exit interviews if you're losing folks. But I think it's worth addressing these 5 key elements that, again, aren't necessarily pay related, that teachers are reporting why they are quitting or leaving the classroom. And many of these elements ring true for me when I left teaching to come to the SCSB. So the first element is poor management. So unrealistic expectations. So much has been put on teachers during the pandemic. We all know that. It's been heavily reported. We live it every single day. Poor communication, power hoarding, toxic school culture. We all know and have worked in schools or have had experiences like this, even out, jobs outside of schools, but schools can kind of become like a petri dish for some of these things when it's a really high stress environment. But all of those can be indications that there is an issue with management or a problem in a school. Professional input not taken seriously. A lot of teachers are not feeling heard. So it could be that they're giving feedback and it's not being implemented. Lack of consideration for their time, lots of additional professional developments to try and kind of meet the need of the students, especially during COVID. But sometimes those professional developments can become super overbearing or take so much time. There might not be enough time to implement the tools learned in that professional development, or they might be poorly designed, the one and done. Increased or punitive observations as our students are struggling to meet some of our benchmarks, and we've kind of seen this dip in proficiency in testing that could turn around and end up result in more tough observations on our teachers when the teachers are not the issue whatsoever. So all of those things kind of lead to teachers feeling like siloed and frustrated and just not maybe feeling like they have a voice. Also lack of teacher involvement in leadership. That's a really important aspect. Staff shortages. How many prep periods have been lost covering for a peer who was out sick the past few years? Teachers a lot of time feel unable to take time off. I know of several teachers who propped themselves up in bed and taught while they were battling COVID, taught their class online. So the pandemic has only exacerbated these staffing issues. Lack of respect. This could look like encroaching on a teacher's prep or out of work time, lack of appreciation, refusal to acknowledge a teacher's reality or feelings. Sometimes it's really overwhelming to meet the emotional needs of all of your staff because everyone's can really be going through it right now and struggling. So William, I'm so sorry. I see your hand, you have your hand up. Please pipe in.
Yeah, sorry. I was wondering if you'd go back up just a couple slides to the one about the management. And I would love to kind of open the floor for any suggestions or any questions that the directors have about this, of how we as leaders in the school can really help support teachers and kind of take seriously that responsibility of maybe things aren't working quite right for our teachers. I will add, I was just included on a survey by one of our schools where they sent out a question to all of their staff and a lot of their stakeholders, just kind of asking this same thing of what can we do as leaders to help improve your experience here at the school? I think that's a great option. Not even just the teacher's perspective. As parents, how can we help you as parents to feel like you're having a better experience here? Have any of you directors had experiences with that or issued a survey like that? How has it gone? What have you learned from it?
Yeah, I'll jump in just quickly. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
We felt some of this, I think, especially during the last 6 months. I felt this, especially as teachers just feel more exhausted. And I think their bandwidth for dealing with difficult situations is just less than maybe it was at another time. But I've heard from some of my teachers, and one thing that they really appreciate is just the physical presence of an administrator in their life, in their world. Now that's kind of that. I think that can go both ways. I mean, that can come by way of just, oh, I'm going to observe your class again, which adds to the stress, right? Like Liz mentioned that item. And I never want the teachers to be stressed because I'm visiting them more. But I think just being a presence, not so much as a formal visit, but just being present in the hallways and in helping them work through difficult conversations and just being there. And I think that adds us so much by way of just a sense of support. And it also, I think, gives you sort of a better idea of what's happening, what people are dealing with and what they're talking about. And rather than being a distant presence, which just adds to the potential for gossip and for poor communication and all that kind of stuff.
Steve, I love that. And if you have any other advice on how you do classroom visits or even just to make yourself present without it being an observation, I would love that. And I would just add that.
I'll just answer that quickly.
Yeah.
I just schedule in my week. I just schedule time. It's just out in the school time with no particular place to be, no particular classroom. I'll schedule those as well, but I'll just schedule school, like wandering through the school time. And I mean, it seems like a little bit, but I try to do at least an hour a week that's dedicated to that, where I'm just out kind of wandering around. And if I can do more, that's great. But scheduling an hour sometimes is really hard. But if I make it happen, then it's on there, it's on the calendar, and I'm planning for it. And yeah.
Did you let your teachers know beforehand that this is what you were doing so that it wasn't just like, surprise, Steve's in the room?
I have in the past with this last round of sort of that plan, not so much, but I'm generally not just popping into a classroom. It's more kind of we have some pod areas, sort of some common areas, and there's often teachers and students there, and then teachers taking students to and from specialists and things like that. So I'm trying to be more visible to them and walking up the hallway with them and chatting with them in the copy room and things like that. So I want them to be very, very informal kinds of sort of meetings.
I love that. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I love that as well. Thank you so much, Steve, and William too.
Anybody else have any other thoughts on that one? I thought I saw another mic muted. Oh, Deborah.
Well, we did a survey during one of our faculty meetings. Oh, might have been in January, because we noticed teachers feeling just so much stress, right? So we did ask, what do you need? So it was kind of this open-ended thing, and we had sticky notes for everyone, and they put them up. Do you need help with grading? Or do you need us to shift what we're doing with grading? Do you need extra day? So we kind of had a few things, and it came across that some teachers were like, I need there to be a place where if I need to take a mental health day. So we gave an extra day for that. But we also listened to them talk about how much grading they have and all this additional stuff. And so we kind of have limited how many meetings we're having after school. And we're able to, like I said, give them this extra mental health day where we said, you don't have to make big, huge plans. We'll try to find coverage. And even some of us as admin team are going in and helping cover it. So that's kind of where our teachers were with that.
That's really cool, Deborah.
Think about being around the building and helping out, right? Because you walk into a classroom and someone's like, can I just go to the bathroom? Or can I go here? Can I go there? So I think there's a lot to be said for us being available and present, more so now than ever before.
I really like the idea of how can we help even with just grading? So I remember my first year teaching, we were a startup school. It was our first year, like there was a lot to do, but the office staff regularly would come in and just say, I've got a free half hour. Do you need any grades entered? And it was like, yes, here's this whole stack of papers. Like I've already read through the essays or whatever it was. I just need it in the computer. And they'd go through and do that for me. That was a huge help. And so if there's something like that you've got access to, or you know, another team member who's not necessarily teaching, but can just data entry, right? What a huge load taken off of the shoulders of the teachers, to have somebody else go into the computer and just make sure things are entered correctly.
I
Can
love
add
that.
One more thing that we've done that has been really helpful. We did have I think it was maybe back in November, we had a faculty meeting talking about this, and we did ask the teachers in that meeting what would be most helpful to them. And overwhelmingly, it was time. That's the thing that they're feeling the most crunch on with the added demands of the pandemic and life in general. So we created, we took advantage of what's available to us now this year in the state, and we had not been using online school. We've been in person in the building 5 days a week, but we decided to designate 3 online days between January and the end of the year. And those have come essentially, you know, 1 in January, 1 in March, and 1 in May. And it seems like a small thing. They were 3 days of online work, but they were so welcomed by the teachers. And we've got one coming up this coming Friday, and you can just feel like, oh, I can make it to Friday, and then I've got this time to catch up and catch my breath. So that was a big deal to them. And I think as long as we can continue to do that, we'll offer some things like that, because that's something that is within our control, more so than you know, huge funding bumps from the state to education. I mean, things have gone well there this year, but they don't fundamentally change the pay structure at most schools. So that is something we can do, and we'll continue to do it as much as we can.
Steve, what I really love about your days is those 3 online days is that it seems like they're pretty strategic and placed in some of the parts of the school year that are the longest stretches, the most brutal. After winter break was always a tough, you know, kind of a long haul. So I love those strategically placed days as well.
Yeah,
that's really great.
We thought carefully about that, about when they would make most sense. So
I love that. That's really awesome.
Liz, did you see the comments in chat? There's
No.
two more really great ideas in there.
Please share, Marie. Thank you.
Yeah, one comes from Jennifer Blaine. She said we gave teachers a choose your own PD day. And then they just needed to report on what they did with their team or the entire staff. Then they will follow up on their own personal progress of their PD experience 2 weeks later. Teachers loved it. And then Shem Smith, he said, 1 year I did a sub for my teachers on their birthday to give them more time. I gave them an extra prep hour by filling in for them in a class of their choosing. They really appreciated that. So 2 more great ideas.
I love that birthday one, especially. That's really cool. That's awesome. Okay, let's get through the last of these tough things. I think we already started talking a little bit about lack of respect. Just reiterating what we've already talked about, lack of time, lack of support from admins, who in a charter school might also be the HR representative. That's a tough one when you have a really small school. Eroded teacher autonomy. Teachers are highly trained professionals and should be treated as such, and that sometimes can be really hard when everyone is stretched so thin. The last thing that the article mentioned was classroom management, because we all know that the pandemic has hit our students very hard, mental health wise, behaviorally wise. It just adds an additional layer onto the classroom management that teachers are dealing with, on top of just, like, you know, those acting out behaviors, but also just being worried about their students and having to worry about the isolation and, you know, all of the different factors of the pandemic. So teachers might need additional institutionalized support and resources for classroom management. And then I have to add pay, because pay is really important. It's, it's hardly worth talking about. We all know that this is an issue within education. Many teachers have felt underpaid for a long time. Charter teachers are often paid less than their district counterparts. Sometimes that's even like a bragging right for some charter schools, that teachers will still come to them even though they could be paid more at a district. Teachers are often intrinsically motivated and natural born helpers and have a lot of like deep empathy for others, and that can be taken advantage of by this system. So teachers stay for the students, and despite the above mentioned issues, but there is a breaking point. In the current job market, there's this kind of movement for teachers who are leaving education. If you're enjoy social media and on TikTok, there are thousands of videos of teachers who have left education and talk about the different prospects for careers in like the private sector, and a lot of teachers are finding success in that. And also like this community of folks who are leaving education and some of the opportunities that are there. So yeah, pay is very important. So all these factors, what can charter directors do? We've already heard so many great, amazing ideas that mirror a lot of what we're already talking about. So number one, obviously talk to your teachers. So like folks are having staff meetings even before, winter break in November, having staff meetings, sending out surveys. So I've included a sample of what's called a stay survey, or you could do an interview if that's what works best for your LEA. I will share, I think we'll probably have to, one's on a Google Doc and one's on a Google survey. If you want a copy, I'll have to share with you, but it's adopted from an HR blog, and it's a great practice for both schools with excellent teacher retention who want to keep it that way, and also for schools who are struggling and want to pinpoint why. So a stay survey is the opposite of an exit survey. It's designed to gather that feedback from your employees while they're still your employee. So it could be an anonymous survey, it could be a sit-down interview, depending on your capacity and desire to remain anonymous, or how you plan to use the data. So if you do an interview, try to schedule within a relatively short period of time. They usually take like 30 minutes to an hour. And then after you've either conducted the survey or the interviews, try to utilize that data. When you're analyzing it, look for patterns and trends. Google Survey has survey analysis tools. You can find the most commonly used words, or there's like searchable tools in Google Survey. Can you detect any trends in why employees are staying or wanting to leave? Like who specifically on your staff feels unheard or underappreciated? And then are there trends in like who in your staff is feeling that way? This data can help you find ways to strengthen the positive factors and reduce the negative factors, and they can help your teachers feel heard as well. Having the time to sit down with all of your staff to have this conversation is a big ask, and it takes a lot of time, but a one-on-one with your administrator to check in, I think would be really valuable to teachers right now. Take the data to your board, take action, create a committee, create a teacher retention plan based on your school specific data, because it will look different for every school. Really quickly, here are some of the sample questions. Like, what do you look forward to the most when you come to work? What do you dread? So it has some questions that are more positive focused, and then some that are more on like the tough things about teaching. What would tempt you to leave the school? That could kind of help you to suss out if it's mostly financial or if it's other aspects. What could make your job more satisfying? My favorite question is, how would you like to be recognized for the work that you do? That's a really good self-reflection and really helps admins to pinpoint what teachers actually do want as recognition. If not $1 million, what is it? It could just be, that additional support, that additional thank you. Yeah, find out from your teachers directly. Another option is to innovate. If we look at our 53G 5-104, the purpose of charter schools, number 3 is to create new professional opportunities for educators that will allow them to actively participate in designing and implementing the learning program at the school. One of the main purpose of charters is for teachers to be involved in the innovation. There are so many opportunities to innovate within charter movement. There's less bureaucracy and red tape than at the district schools, and you can pivot and adjust in real time a lot more easily than those big systems. Some great ideas include, these are from the brilliant Marie Stephenson. So Marie, pipe in if you want to elaborate.
Liz, sorry, you got muted there.
Liz, did you want me to share about something?
Sorry, Marie, I said Marie, the host muted you. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, sorry. That was not
Okay.
on purpose.
Well, I was just trying to give you a shout out, Maureen, because you had these great ideas for different ways to innovate. So please elaborate, Marie, on any of these. So some ideas include like adjust your administrative priorities, which sounds like several of our amazing administrators are, right? They're finding ways to be in the hallways, to visit classrooms, to check in with their teachers. It's excellent. Hire a temporary behavior management staff, play with your schedule. Can you combine certain classes or periods? What staffing models can you adopt or restructure? This is the time to rise above, be adaptable, innovate again, because you've already been innovating. And this is really what charters functions are, and that's what charters do best. So is there a new way to think about or approach this teacher retention issue? Maureen, did I do it, or do you
Yeah, no, I
have
think
anything to
you
add?
shared that really well. When Liz and I were talking about this, this was one that I felt, strongly about, that, really having that opportunity to innovate and to take those problems and see them as opportunities, is a really good opportunity that we have. I know one of these, playing with our schedule, when I was a director, that was one of the biggest concerns out in our area, was carpool, and how some of the other schools near us, carpools were taking 30 to 40 minutes. And so working with my board, working with my teachers, trying to figure out some creative solutions. It sounds so silly, but we ended up running like 2 carpool loops, and we ran a split schedule. So we had students that would come 90 minutes earlier, and then in the middle of the day when everyone was there, and then that first group would go home, and then our last group would stay 90 minutes later. And so between all of those things, it answered a number of concerns that had been out there. It gave teachers that time to have small group instruction. They had 90 minutes where they only ever had half of their class. It also took care of that carpool issue between only half the students coming, and then the 2 loops. Our carpool took about 10 minutes is all. And so it took care of a community concern. Teachers didn't have to be out there for 40 minutes after school or before school. That was something we were able to cover. And for 10 minutes, the administration could go out and help with that. And so, not that that's the right answer for everyone, but feeling out what are those problems, and then getting creative minds on what can we do about it, I think can be a real great opportunity for us as school leaders.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marie. Also, some interesting legislation passed, the Education Innovation Program, which is HB 386. That could provide a lot of further really interesting opportunities for charters to retain and attract teachers. Some of the legislation is for teachers to propose innovative, different teaching methodologies to their LEA and get approved. And that's some really interesting, exciting legislation. So keep an eye on that. Number 3, if all else fails, start making a plan for recruiting new teachers. It's recruiting season. It might even be kind of the tail end of recruiting season, but most of the districts are holding hiring fairs this week. The charter school hiring fair was already in February. But what makes teaching at your school special? How can you differentiate, especially from the district schools? If we've identified these key elements of why teachers are leaving, how can you emphasize your school strengths and hire teachers who have left districts or district positions because of those issues? So yeah, so that's what I have. Please take a moment to collaborate, vent, add ideas, chat about teacher retention, especially if yours is high this year. Ask a question, pop into the chat, feel free to unmute. Thank you all so much. This is not something that we alone are struggling with. It's a major issue. And I think that there's really an opportunity to innovate and solve some problems. So thank you so much
Liz?
to those who piped in. Yes,
Can I add something just on the recruiting up above?
of course.
Anecdotally, I was having a conversation with member Stephanie Spiker, who is in the education department at Weber State University. And we were just kind of talking about some of the trends that she has seen. And one thing she observed was that they've had more students drop out of the teaching program in just the last 6 months than they've had ever. And they've also had less people enroll in teaching programs. And I believe it was Stephanie, maybe it was someone else that I was talking with, mentioned that there are several universities that have closed down their education programs because there's just not interest in teaching as a profession moving forward. And I think for us, this really does present an opportunity where we do need, knowing that we can't pay the teachers as much as they might get somewhere else, we do have to be very intentional with how we are advertising our schools as a place that they want to come to, right? We can't make it about an extra 10 grand. And so we've got to show them, hey, this is an opportunity for you to get specialized training or become an expert in X, Y, or Z. We've really got to find ways as directors to capitalize on that, which is our strength as charters, that being different than the districts. I just think that's a really important thing to note, especially as we're going into 6 months where, we've heard that there are some charter schools that have hired specialized recruiters that are reaching out to teachers and they're poaching teachers. So we've got to be really good about what it is we're offering to teachers to keep them in our schools.
Thank you, William. Do any other directors want to share maybe if they've done a survey, if had some good outputs from that?
Liz, this is Debbie, if I could add one thing. Not that I've done a survey, we've looked at our engagement survey that came to the state, some other things, but the other thing is that I think that charters who are willing to take teachers through Apple and help them with that alternative route in licensing do have a hand up, because many times the traditional districts don't want to work with that. So that's something to help others to be aware of.
That's great. I came up through ARL and you definitely can get some really wonderful teachers that way. So that's great, Deborah. Thank you.
Additionally, the LEA specific licensure is also a great tool, right? You've got the ability as like your board can grant a license to the individuals in your school that keeps them certified for the next couple of years. And there are some steps, but that's another really easy way to help get people in the classroom who, are sitting at home saying, man, I maybe don't have a bachelor's degree or a master's in education, but I'd love to teach. I'd love to get in the classroom. We can help, right? Like you as the leaders, you can help get those people out of their houses and out of their other jobs and into the classroom.
Yeah,
I think William, speaking to that too, noticing which of your aides are really excelling. Like you've got people in positions probably, and sometimes that homegrown aspect of someone growing into a teaching position, looking to your aides or your paraprofessionals can be another really good place to find some individuals that know your system and are ready for that next growth opportunity in their career.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say that the Apple program and and certainly the letters of authorization, the LEA specific licenses have been really helpful to us, particularly for those positions that in our middle school where there's a course that we need someone to teach that's not really one like a CCA course that's maybe hard to find someone that's really just an expert in that, but certainly it's a course that a lot of different people could do with life experience, and that's been helpful. And I would say the other thing, just in general, and I'm glad you brought up pay because I think it ties into this. It's not a separate issue. It's certainly very fundamental to what's happening in the profession, but I think it's not the solution, right? These other things also have to be in place. I mean, I have friends and relatives who are lawyers who leave the profession, not because the pay isn't good, but because the working conditions are horrible. And, but they don't leave it for a job that pays a fifth as much as what they're getting, right? So we need to, whatever, and I don't know what all the things that need to happen, but that is a problem that the state of Utah is facing right in its face now. And I think it's been coming for a long time, and all of a sudden it's here, and we don't seem to have at the state level a really good solution to it. And we're going to feel it. We're feeling it already, and it's going to hurt. But I think creating a culture and an environment for our teachers where they feel that we as their administrators care about them, and that it is a family of sorts, and that we're going to help them and support them in their hard conversations with parents and in their challenges with kids. I think all those things are so important for creating a place where teachers feel like they can tough it out for another year.
Steve, I think you're right. It definitely is a state level issue of how much we pay. I think there definitely are things within our power that we can do to support that. Thinking about, so last month or 2 months ago, we gave a spotlight to Spectrum Academy in the board meeting. And one of the things that they talked about was that 80% of their budget goes towards their teacher salaries, or goes toward just salaries in general for their team. And I know, we each can look at the budgets of our schools and say, is there any room in this budget that we can reprioritize what we're spending our money on to make sure that our teachers, which are really our only asset, that they're our focus. Another thing that I was thinking of, and I am speaking completely off the cuff. I haven't done any research in this, but I have a friend who is in health insurance. And, I know that health insurance and those benefits is one of the big things that we have a challenge with, because they're just so expensive for small schools. I started thinking, I was like, I wonder if there's a way for us, like for schools to come together as like a cohort and get the same insurance plan so that we can get better rates, things like that. I don't know if that's legal. I was thinking that the other night. So if somebody's looked into that, please tell me. And but I was just kind of curious if that's an option or an opportunity for us to collaborate with each other and make sure that we're getting the best rate we can for our teachers, so that we can put more money towards their actual salaries. I see that Joy Lynn had a comment. Joy Lynn, do you want to speak more about that, of just what you guys have done to set that up?
Just UAPCS has already done the legwork on bringing together a group that can get lower insurance rates just because of a mass group. So if you need more information on it, you're welcome to reach out to Debbie. But we do have group insurance rates to help drive down those costs.
That's cool.
Is that a different group than like PEHP, Joy Lynn?
I believe it is.
Okay.
Any other directors, have you had any other successes or ideas about what you're doing to support your teachers during this time? We've got almost 50 people here with great experience in the classroom. We'd love to hear what you've got and help each other to learn more and figure out what it is that's working, how we can help our teachers.
Yeah, one thing we've tried to do with this, for example, with this letters, the letters training that's been available to some schools and some schools have done, we've tried to create opportunities within our already scheduled professional development time to give our teachers time during that period to do letters training so that it eases the burden a little bit on them so that they're not having to do it in the evening all the time or weekends or things like that. So we've tried to kind of, I think it was mentioned before, trying to ease our own time expectations on our teachers where we could. You know, there are certain meetings that just have to happen, but we've tried to look at our schedule and say, you know, this meeting isn't necessary, or this is something that could be handled in an email versus having to have our teachers stay after school again for it. So we've tried to be mindful of that and really be, you know, willing to cut back a little bit this year, which I always worry a little bit about that because it's hard to, you know, if there are meetings that must happen that help build training and culture and provide training and culture, you don't want to lose those. You want to make sure the meetings are productive, but then maybe there's a time and a place where you can just cut something and say that's not necessary. It's more important right now that our teachers get time than that we have this particular meeting. So there's that. And then we try to do little things like we have a snack ferry that visits our campus regularly, and just we've got kind of on a rotating basis where the snack ferry hits a group of teachers every week with some of the things that they like. So just little comfort items. We've got a parent who's a masseuse, and we've had her on campus a couple of times doing massages up in the front office. And so just, you know, little things like that help and people feel cared for and you know, soothed.
Steve, I love everything that you're doing for your
Yeah,
staff. That's
those are great
amazing.
ideas.
Joylyn says we also have a 401k group.
Any other directors with ideas?
Hey, William, this is Kelly from New Ames. I'll pipe
Hi,
in.
Kelly.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fun to see you.
Good to see you too.
One thing that we've done is we've given our teachers, and I know this is a little bit different as COVID has waned down, but we gave our teachers permission to not respond after school hours had commenced with emails from parents and students. Like we would have, you know, demanding parents or students wanting something to be corrected immediately or wanting a response, but it's 10 p.m. on a Sunday night, or, you know, it's a Saturday afternoon at the child's soccer game. So we just gave them permission, like, hey, you don't have to respond at those hours. Now during working hours, yes, we need you to respond, but once, you know, 5 o'clock hits and it's Friday night, it's your Friday night, and you need to have a break and step away from your duties as a teacher, and then, you know, have because teachers need to be fresh. And I think we saw that with COVID, is like they weren't getting a break. And more an emotional break, right? Because COVID, they were dealing with it at school, but then they were going home and we were dealing with COVID with our loved ones in our homes and with our parents and grandparents and all that. So I think it is important that they have that respite and that break. And then a couple other things that we've done is we have taken turns meeting with just departments and brought in lunch. And sometimes this is our community council bringing in lunch for departments. But it's kind of made them feel special and cool that, you know, it's amazing what teachers will do for free food, right? So, but then at the same time, we don't have enough administration staff to facilitate that. So a lot of times it's been calling on parent volunteers and community council and to bring that in. And then lastly, small class sizes. It's expensive and it doesn't solve the budget issue, but having small class sizes is such a game changer in education.
Yeah. Kelly, can I ask a couple clarifying questions about that first idea? So was there any special work you guys had to do to make sure that the parents and all of your students understood, like 5 p.m. is the email deadline?
Yes. We sent out an email to our stakeholders and our students and said, these are our working hours. If you send an email, and it actually was prompted by a parent who was demanding that a teacher respond, you know, and it's kind of that idea, just because you're unprepared and it's now an emergency on your part doesn't mean it's an emergency on my part. But we have such good teachers and they're good on the inside and they're altruistic by nature, that they were always trying to meet that need in the moment and were burning themselves out in the moment in meeting the need of the student who, you know, couldn't play on the football team because they hadn't completed their math homework and it wasn't graded in Canvas. So, but it is, I think, communication with parents and we have a parent-student code of conduct that we ask them to sign, and kind of the hierarchy of communication that we share with everyone. So parents and our teachers are speaking the same language and being able to communicate in that sense of what the expectations are.
That's cool. Thank you.
Could I add something?
Yeah,
Thank you. I don't know who that was. I couldn't tell who was speaking.
that was Kelly Booth at New Ames.
Oh, Kelly Booth. Well, thank you, Kelly Booth, because I feel like here's one of the tensions, and we certainly feel this in charter schools where parents come to us often with the complaint that when they communicate with the district, they don't get any response. And so we have filled a niche there in responsiveness and in individualizing programs, and which is great. But I think the limit to it is when it's seen as a kind of completely always flexible option. And so I think creating those boundaries is so important for the sanity of our teachers. And I know we as administrators absorb a lot of that, but I think that sends a great message to our teachers that we are here to support them as professionals, not to ignore parents certainly, but to create some boundaries around how that communication happens and what the expectations are is really important.
Steve, I agree. I think one thing that I can see, just kind of to Kelly's point about how altruistic teachers are.
Absolutely.
I like, it is a definite managerial skill that we don't teach in education programs, of setting business hours, of kind of creating these priorities. And I think that's something we can really help our teachers with, is not only setting the expectation as a school, but reminding our teachers, you don't respond after 5, not even as a personal preference, right? Like it is 5 o'clock is our deadline, and that's what we are all holding to, so that everybody gets a break. I also think, you know, I taught English. That was kind of my specialty. And I remember giving papers and projects to students. And I was just thinking, based on Kelly's feedback, had I communicated earlier with the parents of saying, here's this 5-page paper, it's going to be due in 3 weeks, giving them that heads up beforehand, rather than their kid coming home Saturday or, you know, Friday afternoon and saying, I have a paper due Monday morning, and then the parent trying to email me frantically. If I had communicated that with the parents, I probably could have gotten a much better response from them as well, of knowing, okay, I've had 3 weeks notice on this. It is just an emergency on my part. It's not my teacher's or the teacher's responsibility. That could have been really helpful as well. I love these ideas.
I will just say, I've just had a colleague remind a parent that we as teachers don't just show up in their offices unannounced, expecting an appointment. You know, if they're a professional, if they're a therapist, for example, or a lawyer or a doctor, we don't just show up and expect that. And yet that seems to be kind of the expectation with schools and teachers. And it kind of goes to the point that Liz made about just creating a professional sort of respect for the profession. And I think we sometimes allow it because we're kind people, we're nice people. People that go into teaching generally are people that want to help, and I think we do that because we care about the kids, and we as administrators, I think, have to help our teachers create some boundaries and kind of play not so much the bad guy, but we do have to help kind of reinforce those boundaries for the parents.
Good point. Any other ideas or questions?
I have a question about adopt a teacher program. Someone put that in the chat. Hanifi.
Yeah, Hanifi, do you want to unmute yourself and speak about that?
Hi, this is Hanifi. Yes, I mean, all of us are expecting to have that teacher appreciation week, and we kind of like started a little earlier to that. And some of our parents actually brought up this idea, and they send out like surveys to all of our teachers to know kind of, you know, a little more about what they like, what they want to see, what kind of things will make them happy type. And then they formed many parents that they are going to kind of like adopt the teachers, and you know, it could be couple teachers, parents adopting one teacher, and then they'll be working with those teacher, like, you know, helping them, supporting them, providing so many different things that can help and kind of make them happy as well. So it's more of like adopting teacher by some parents that they can look into their needs and wantings so that they can make them happier. So that was the plan.
Is excellent at involving parents in this school. You have a great parent association and a staff that single-handedly works with parents. And I think your model is so cool. So thank you for sharing. And then Tracy also put in the chat that they have 2 to 3 hour coupons to cover a class so teachers can have some extra playing time when needed. I love the idea of it being on call as needed if you really, really need that prep to do a bit, you know, kick off a big new project, or you have millions of copies to go make. Having that time kind of as you need is a really cool idea too, Tracy.
Yeah, we did some cool things like that. Kind of the same thing in our lower school. They called them get out of jail free cards, just to give the teachers a little, an hour here and there to go do whatever they needed to do. And our lower school administration would hop in and cover a class.
That's cool.
I love that.
Any other ideas, questions, tips?
Look, we got so many great ideas. This was excellent. Thank you all so much.
Yeah.
Liz and William, I feel like this leads really well into just our next section. So we'll kind of just stay on here. If we want to keep talking about retention, we certainly can do that. We can move to other topics as well. Really what we've put together this last little bit is just time to share and collaborate. So if anyone has something they'd like to talk about or get some ideas from their colleagues on, we'll stay on for that. Otherwise, have a great afternoon, and we'll see you for our April meeting. Steve, it looks like you're talking. If you're talking to us, you are muted. But if you're talking to someone in the office, then we will just ignore it.
You'd think after 2 years that I would stop making that mistake, but old habits die hard. Yeah, my question was there an in-person meeting scheduled? Did we have one more of those, or this year?
In May, yep. In May, we do have an in-person one scheduled.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing people who can come for that as well. Any other questions or topics that anyone wants to discuss?
I would just like to say thank you to, I don't know who all's on the call here, but I just appreciate the efforts that were made during the legislative session to talk to legislators and to lobby on behalf of schools, both charter schools and education in general, both to get rid of some really sucky bills and make sure that the funding was what we needed, what we asked for. And so I know there's people that are more involved than I am at the legislative level, and I just appreciate them taking that time to represent us and let our voices be heard at the Capitol. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. I think, yeah, we would echo that as well. So thank you to those who got involved in that session. It does look like we got another idea from Wade Glather. He said that they offer a returning bonus that we give them now, but then they redeem the voucher in September to encourage them to come back the next year. Printed on the voucher was info about how much they value them, and the bonus is in recognition of their value to ongoing membership on the team. And then he said it was important to make it clear the bonus was for nothing more than returning, no other requirements. So that's a great idea.
Wade, I love that idea. One of the communities I follow on Reddit had some comments kind of about the similar thing where all these companies were offering, startup bonuses and things like that. And the employees were saying, where's our bonus, right? And similarly, like I'll go to a store that says, hey, we're giving a new employee or new customer benefits. It's like, well, yeah, but I've been a loyal shopper for a while. I would like a benefit as well. Like, where's my benefit? And I think, but that's a great idea. Like, honor the people that are already there. Help them to stay, because it's much easier to keep people. It's much cheaper to keep people than it is to go find someone new, train them, and get them ready to the position you need them at.
So unless anyone has anything else, I'll take kind of the devil's advocate side here. Maybe you're in those shoes. Hopefully you're not, but thinking back to time at schools and being a director, my question would be like, what if we're doing these things and it's not helping, right? What if we're interviewing them? We didn't have a snack fairy, but we had a room service cart, and we took that around giving PD time to teachers. Maybe we're trying all these great things and it's still not working. Like, what do you do there? Or, another direction, I was trying to think of some like on the other side. I had a couple of teachers who came in, set up their classrooms, got everything ready to go. And then like the day before school started, quit. And when, I'm sitting there like, why did you come set up your room? Why did you do everything? They just decided it wasn't for them. And, if you find yourself in one of those spots, like what else can we do? Or what thoughts on any of that? Or maybe I'm the only one that had teacher retention problems.
I mean, one thing you do is you commiserate with your colleagues about it because it's a hard time. It's a hard thing. And I think having other people that are going through it, it's good to know that I think in charter schools, it's easy to feel like, this is just happening to me. What am I doing wrong? And certainly all of us have things we can do better, I'm sure, but talking about myself, but also there are powers bigger than us that cause things to happen. And I think it's just nice to be able to feel like we're in a kind of a common cause with other people. And that's super helpful to me. So good colleagues that I just, we talk about it and we do our best and we try to be optimistic about it. And that gives energy to do hard things when you've got that kind of a opportunity to share your frustrations and there's not always an immediate material solution to every problem. So that's where
Steve, I would agree with that. And sometimes it feels good to just, like you said, not feel like you're the only one. Your comment also reminded me, I had a really great assistant who always said, the universe unfolds the way it should, which, was kind of a funny thing to say, but definitely even those hard times, they did end up, we found new people, or we got a stronger team, or, we'd had a few hard weeks, but, I think that it definitely does work out the way it's supposed to. So. Other thoughts? Oh, go ahead, William.
Well, I was just going to say I'd agree with that. And I think one of the things that we can look at, thinking of the solutions-oriented kind of perspective of, we've hired a teacher and then they came in, set up their classroom, and then they left. Maybe what we need to do then at that point is be much more specific in what it is we're looking for in hiring. And maybe that is an area that we can improve. It might not be, but that's one way to look at it, so that it's not just, oh man, here's a problem and it is what it is. But rather, man, there's got to be something we can do to solve this.
Hey, Marie, the thought that I came as you were kind of mentioning those things is how important that onboarding process is in really helping them feel like they're already a part of the community. And that's hard as we onboard all of our other teachers and have all the other professional development things that we're doing, but really making a concerted effort and making sure that they're part of that. And really kind of being reflective on how can we kind of immediately make them feel a part of that community. But I would also say it's not just at the beginning of the year. I think that translates for a new teacher throughout the year, that they have those supports. Having mentors and having those programs put in place are, I think, pretty critical, especially in today's education world where there's a lot of variables we can't really account for. And so, their teaching experience at whatever they're licensing, wherever they're getting that license from, the teacher's experience is going to be really important in helping them navigate some of those difficult things. But that was the thing that kind of came to my mind, is just onboarding teachers.
Yeah, that's a great idea. But if that's, they're walking in the door and then deciding, nope, not for me, maybe, yeah, some additional onboarding or team building. Absolutely. Those are great ideas, Nate. Thank you.
Could I add one more thing that just occurred to me as Nathan was talking, kind of related?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
On the HR side, personnel side, I've noticed this year more than any other year, and that is an increased interest, at least among middle school teachers, for part-time teaching work. Now, this is sort of the opposite of the money problem. So there are individuals that maybe aren't as dependent on a certain salary in order to be in. They enjoy teaching and they like it, but the full-time commitments are just not worth it anymore. And you lose a little bit with that. When you have a full-time teacher, we all know that a full-time teacher puts in more than full-time hours. And when you have a part-time teacher, they're more limited to a particular schedule. But as we've talked about this, that's kind of the reality. One of the realities we're facing is people who want to stay at the school and want to teach, they just don't want to teach full time. And so, in some cases you might save money in terms of benefits, but you might lose a little bit in terms of that extra availability. But you still have a well-qualified, well-trained teacher who loves the place and wants to be here. So we're trying to kind of figure that out, but it's a reality that we're noticing this year that we haven't had before.
More great ideas. Thanks, Steve. I'm trying to think of another, problem you might be facing. What if you just can't fill a role? Like you have interviewed all the people, you've, gone to the job fairs, you've done all the things you've offered, a signing bonus or a staying bonus or, any of these things. What do you do if you just cannot fill a position?
Well, you consider a long-term sub possibly as one option. We've done that in a couple of cases mid-year for some positions. Some positions are easier to long-term sub than others. Of course, there's the question of the program. How essential is that program to your school, and can you do it with a different position? Can you combine positions? Are there other areas where you could combine? But yeah, that's a hard problem to face for sure.
I see some fingers crossed and prayer hands there. Definitely, we'll all finger cross and prayer hands that none of us end up in that spot, right? Nate, I see that you unmuted. Do you have more great thoughts to share with us?
Yeah, one thing that we've, especially with CTE positions that are sometimes difficult to fill, is looking for other people's qualifications and seeing if they'd be willing for us to buy out their preps. And it gives them a little bit more financial incentive, but it does allow us to cover not always a full-time line, but at least fill in some of those harder to fill positions. And so we've done that and mostly successful.
Great idea.
We've had a lot of success too when we do have a position come up, especially mid-year, but really at any time, reaching out first of all to our parent body. And we've gotten some great, just fantastic recommendations and candidates from our own parents who either they themselves or someone they know, someone they're close to. So we've really tried to start there as always our first stop is our parent body, and as we're looking for candidates.
Great idea. Adding to that, Steve, I was going to say, sometimes even with your own staff or your own parents doing like a referral bonus or something of that nature. I found some success with that, and that helps them that they've got a friend, they've got someone, that's buying in with them as well. I see a question.
Marie,
oh, go ahead.
Marie,
Marie.
sorry, can I just add one more thing on this? And I think this to the point that Liz made earlier on in the presentation of just, we're not able to get the teachers. This is where we as charter schools shine, is that innovation part. And maybe there's something we really can think of like that is super outlandish, but like, let's give it a try, right? Like that's what we're about as charters, is let's creatively solve these problems that we're facing and see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll keep trying to find a teacher and we'll go back to something later. But maybe this year we're doing an hour every day where everybody's online or whatever it is, right? But I think that's where we get to really shine as problem solvers, which is one of the things that drove me to charters, is that idea of finding creative solutions to problems that you just don't face every day.
Definitely. The question that was asked in the chat was how many schools have referral bonuses or probation period bonuses? I don't know if anyone wants to speak to that, or we can also share any other questions or topics.
Marie, I'm just glad that we had this discussion earlier so we're in March, we're still relatively early in the school year. Just because my personal view is that I think I can see us getting to a point where hiring and retaining teachers is harder and harder and harder and more difficult. And I can see definite problems with that down the road for us as an organization. And so I just think getting a head start on this now, rather than waiting until July or August when we're like, oh man, I've got to get people in this classroom. What am I going to do? Starting to think about that now is going to be really advantageous for us, because I know the districts are already doing it. And they've got some deeper pockets than we do. So we got to compete somehow.
Perfect. Well, good. I'm glad. Hopefully everybody found this to be helpful. We'll stay on for a few more minutes if anyone wants to bring up any other topics or things to discuss. Again, otherwise, have a great afternoon and we'll see you in April.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you for all your great
Thanks,
ideas.
Steve. Bye, everybody. You're welcome, Katina.